In Iraq, tensions over the October 10th election are continuing to escalate. It's now a week since protests over the results turned violent between supporters of pro-Iranian groups and security forces. And on Saturday, the Prime Minister al-Kadhimi survived an assassination attempt when weaponised drones attacked his residence. Well, let's get the latest from our Middle East correspondent, Anna Foster, who's in Baghdad. Anna, welcome to you. Tell us more about this standoff.
Well, tensions are high here in Iraq, and they have been for a few weeks now, ever since, as you mentioned, those election results 4 weeks ago. I'm actually on the edge of old Baghdad this morning because it's Friday. You see, there's this huge market that stretches all the way behind me. This is where people turn out. Just to give you an idea of the geography where we are, the River Tigris runs just parallel to me across here, and then you've got the international zone, the green zone, the part of Baghdad which is supposed to be incredibly secure, but as you say, it is where the Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi's house is, and where a drone last Sunday morning in the early hours crashed down onto that home in what's been described as an attempt on his life, as a terrorist attack, frankly, by the US. That was how Joe Biden characterised it. Now, what is going on at the moment is a real standoff over those results. Many of them are being manually recounted because certain parties, particularly the pro-Iranian militia-backed parties, don't believe that those results were fair. They think there was corruption. And it feels like the next big flashpoint here will be when those results are finally announced after the recount, and when the parties finally have to come together and form some sort of ruling coalition.
Now, this was supposed to be a really important election, led very much by the younger people of the country who are anti-corruption and they want to see the country build and move on. But there was a pretty low turnout, wasn't there?
There was. It's one of the lowest turnouts they've ever had. Only 43% of people turned out to vote in that election, which was brought forward, as you say, as a result of those protests back in 2019, when so many people turned out in Basra in the south, here in Baghdad, in Tahrir Square. They took to the streets for weeks because they wanted to see change. But then many of those activists were kidnapped, were killed, and it meant that when the democratic process finally came to a head, many of them didn't want to get involved. They didn't vote. Many of them didn't stand for elections. So now people really feel that the same old faces, the same old parties are going to continue in power here. And just a little further along in Baghdad, you might recognise the name Sadr City, named after the Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. He is the kingmaker now. He is the person who will get to decide really who the next Prime Minister of Iraq is, because his party has the largest number of seats. But it's always a coalition. There are talks, there are discussions. Will anything change? Certainly the younger generation here in Baghdad, across Iraq, aren't convinced that it will.
And what about everyday life, which seems to be going on pretty normally behind you? What's it like for ordinary Iraqis?
Well, one of the things that really sparked those protests in 2019 was the corruption that people see at the top of the political system. Unemployment is a huge problem, and also the quality of life as well, crumbling services. You see, like I say, a market like this on Friday morning, and you see people young and old, they're out, they're enjoying themselves, but below the surface, people are struggling to live, they're struggling to get a job, they're struggling to eat. And that is why they want to see the political class really try and make some kind of change here in Iraq, and that is what they're hoping for. And at the moment, that really seems quite a long way away.
OK, Anna Foster in Baghdad, thanks very much for being with us.